Okay, I'm really looking forward to this show. And I'm debating on whether or not I consider this to be a serious topic. Obviously, the assassination of JFK is a very serious thing. It is a serious topic. But we're so far removed from it now that discussing the circumstances around it, it doesn't feel as raw or emotional as I guess it used to back in the day. I wasn't alive. But I'm really looking forward to, I'm really interested in the different views people have of the JFK assassination, what they think happened, why it happened. We've got a couple guests on. It's going to be a really, really cool show. And so I thought, in fairness, I might as well just give you my theory on it. I'll tell you my justification, and then I'll lay out my theory on it, and then we'll move on to others. And listen, I don't know. You don't know. We all think we know. Everyone has a theory. If you asked my old man, well, before he passed, if you asked my old man, he would tell you till he was blue in the face that LBJ killed JFK. Maybe he did. My dad was right about everything. Maybe, so he probably did. I don't know. That's not my theory. Here's my theory. Okay. And I'll justify it after I tell you my theory. My theory is the American mafia, both Italian and Jewish, we'll get to that in a moment, the Italian mafia, the Jewish mafia in America, in conjunction with partners in the Central Intelligence Agency, took out President John F. Kennedy. Now, let me explain why. Now, that's not something you haven't ever heard before, but allow me to give you my explanation. First, the background on all this. Cuba, the United States of America, before Castro, the United States of America really controlled Cuba. We really kind of did. We controlled Cuba. And it was, from my understanding, I've never been, an island paradise, a Caribbean island paradise, a vacation mecca for Americans, a business mecca for American businesses. We had corporations setting up shop there. Americans like you, me, you want to take the fam down somewhere nice for a week, you go to Cuba. That was what it was. And because of their laws, it became heaven for the mafia, the American mafia, the Italian mafia and Jewish mafia, and those are really one and the same at this point in time. But just know, for the purposes of our conversation, several different American mafia families existed then and exist now. And really the Jewish mafia, the head of that back then was a man by the name of Meyer Lansky. Now, what did they do in Cuba? Well, gambling, casinos. The second you get people into a casino, that becomes like a magnet for mafia-type figures. The Trafficante family, that's a mafia family that ran Florida. The Marcello family, under Carlos Marcello, that's the mafia family that ran New Orleans. These names are going to be incredibly important, so stay with me here. Sam Giancana, who ran the outfit or the syndicate, the Chicago mafia. And plus New York, there's a lot of mafia connections. They're all involved in Cuba. They're making a fortune in Cuba, a fortune. Before they were making money on Vegas, they were making that money in Cuba. Then Fidel Castro leads a revolution. The communists take over Cuba. The United States of America is upset for a variety of reasons. One, we don't like communism. Two, we are losing our business interests. We don't want a hostile communist power just off of our shore. We are angry and we want to do something about it. Guess who's just as angry as America was, or as the American government was? The American mafia was, Jewish and Italian. Quite upset because one of the first things Castro did was kick them all out of the country. No more money, no more casino, no more checks. Now, this is all documented. What I'm saying now, none of this is theory. This is all documented. So the American government wanted Castro dead, tried in several ways to kill Fidel Castro. They were struggling to do so, Central Intelligence Agency. At one point in time, they reached out to the American mafia because they thought the mafia could help taking somebody out. But it gets more in depth. You know about the Bay of Pigs when we tried to invade and take back Cuba with a bunch of brave Cubans. What you may not know is many of those brave Cubans were trained here on U.S. soil. They were trained by Central Intelligence Agency, places like Florida and otherwise, and they needed guns. And who can move weaponry easily inside the borders of the United States of America? The American Mafia. This part hasn't really been confirmed, but it's believed that the American Mafia was helping run those guns to the Cubans who would eventually die and be imprisoned in the failed invasion of the Bay of Pigs, okay? So you got all that. Most of that is confirmed background. We're not even in the wacko conspiracy theory land. And then we get to the Bay of Pigs. People don't like to be embarrassed. I don't like to be embarrassed. You don't like to be embarrassed. Powerful men really do not like to be embarrassed. And they will oftentimes hurt people if they are. John F. Kennedy did not appreciate the Bay of Pigs, and he laid the blame squarely at the feet. Fairly or unfairly, he laid the blame squarely at the feet of the Central Intelligence Agency, talked about breaking up the Central Intelligence Agency. CIA didn't want that. Now, combine that with this. John F. Kennedy, his dad had all kinds of mafia connections. Bootlegging, prohibition. His dad, very powerful man, had mafia connections. Reportedly, he leveraged those connections to help his son win the presidency in states like Illinois, back to that Sam Giancana Chicago mob stuff. Now, the mob, they believed they helped John F. Kennedy win the presidency. John F. Kennedy won the presidency, promptly made his brother Attorney General. His brother, as Attorney General, went after the American mob. Not only did he go after them, he called them in publicly, made these secretive men publicly testify, and frankly, embarrassed them. I remember watching one of these things. I forget who it was. He actually accused one of them of laughing like a little girl. So now you have the CIA not that pleased with John F. Kennedy. The mob not that pleased with John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy takes a ride in a convertible through Dallas. John F. Kennedy is shot. Lee Harvey Oswald, I don't deny that at all. Whether there was a second shooter or gunman, I don't know. But what I do know is this. Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who just assassinated the President of the United States of America, was then paraded publicly on camera. Paraded. It's an odd move for such a security risk, don't you think? Not only was he paraded on camera, he was then shot on camera. You can go watch it to this day by somebody named Jack Ruby. Seems like a patriotic citizen, just upset about his president, of course. Well, that's interesting because Jack Ruby famously ran a Dallas area strip club for the mob. Jack Ruby, in his youth, used to go around and beat people up with clubs and chains for none other than Meyer Lansky. Jack Ruby was a lifelong mobster. Just happened to be so filled with patriotic fervor that he took out Lee Harvey Oswald before Lee Harvey Oswald could testify to anything. Now, I will put a final bow on my theory, and then we'll move on and hear everyone else's theory. I'll put a final bow on it with this. I love American Mafia stories like any red-blooded American male. I read them. I watch the documentaries, book after book after book I've read. Now, you read one book from one mobster, you're gonna just anticipate there's a bunch of lies in there. These are career liars. That's what career criminals are. But it is remarkably consistent. Account after account after account after account, from Frank Sheeran's book, I Heard You Paint Houses, to a Bonanno book, to book after book after book after book, mafia guys from back in this era seem to tell the exact same tale, some version of it, that I just told you. We helped elect Kennedy, then he screwed us over. We got to know the CIA really well previously. We decided we were going to take out the American president. One liar, okay. 10 of them, it's probably as many books as I've read talking about it, all telling the same tale, probably something to that. This is just my theory. Now, a lot of that, the background stuff, which I told you is fact, but that's my theory. Will we ever know? No, we will not ever know. Newly declassified documents don't shed any light on any of that. Now, they kind of indicate maybe some of that might be true, but we're never going to get confirmation of it. That's half the point of taking out the patsy, isn't it? All ties are severed. Maybe that made you uncomfortable. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.